AM 1480 WLEA.
State Senator Cathy Young in segment 1, Kevin Doran in segment 2.
Next on News Talk, AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
It's Brian O'Neill in for Kevin Doran, and our thanks to State Senator Cathy Young for coming on today.
Great to be with you, Brian.
Senator Young, you issued a statement Monday reiterating your request for Governor Cuomo to sign your bill to make sure mental patients who are released from jail or institutions get into treatment programs, and you cited the New York City police shooting incident that happened this past Saturday in Brooklyn as an example of why this bill needs to be signed into law.
It's not surprising that Ismail Brinsley, who viciously murdered those two police officers who were just sitting in their patrol car protecting the public, had a history, number one, of being incarcerated several times, but number two, of being treated for severe mental illness. And his own family even said that they had felt threatened by him. And he had been released into the community without any supervision, without any medication or follow-up treatment. And this is the same story that we hear over and over and over again in these terrible cases, and something needs to be done. That's why Assemblyman Danny O'Donnell and I got together earlier this year, and together we passed a bill that's on Governor Cuomo's desk right now. I'm afraid that the governor may veto it because some are contending that it's too expensive to do evaluations of mentally ill patients when they're released from prison. I say it's too expensive not to do it because we have seen the tragedy after tragedy that has occurred.
Wasn't there just a case recently where a mental patient in New York City pushed somebody in front of a subway train?
There was another subway murder. There also was the murder of a little boy a few months ago in the elevator of a New York City Housing Authority building. And he and his little 7-year-old friend had just gotten on the elevator to go get ice cream. There was a mentally ill man, had just been released from prison, and he brutally stabbed those two poor little children. And the little boy, who was 6 years old, passed away. So we see this over and over again, and I'd like to remind our listeners that it was just Christmas Eve in 2012 when first responders in Webster, New York, were shot to death by William Spangler, who had spent time in state prison for murdering his own grandmother, and he was released, despite mental illness, into the community without any supervision. So we see this tragic tale over and over again, and that's why I'm urging the governor to sign my bill.
The list of mentally ill criminals, it's not a short list. Senator Young, you've been working on this legislation for some time with Assemblyman O'Donnell in New York City. Senator, the first thing that occurs to me on that one is this. Dan O'Donnell is an influential New York City Democrat. Governor Cuomo himself, a New York City Democrat. You're an important member of the Republican State Senate. You headed up the Senate Republican Campaign Committee. So you and O'Donnell are nobody to be ignored. Any idea as to why the governor has not signed this yet?
You know, I do think that there are people in his ear saying it's too expensive, but you know what? There's been study after study that show that when you give somebody treatment who has severe mental illness, the rate of suicide goes down, the rate of violent incidents goes down, and if they've been incarcerated, the recidivism rate goes down so that they don't reoffend and they don't go back to prison, because it actually costs much more when we have to house mentally ill people in our prisons and our jails across the state. So this actually would be a money saver, and so that's why, again, I think the governor should sign this bill.
I know that two big issues for you in the past couple of years have been Common Core and the SAFE Act. In the upcoming legislative session, any plans for SAFE Act or Common Core reform?
Well, I'll still continue to sponsor legislation that would repeal the SAFE Act. You know my feelings on it. It was a terrible infringement on our Second Amendment rights, and there is a group of legislators who continue to push hard to have some amendments and some changes made to the SAFE Act, because I think it's made us anything but safe. I think that the recent police shooting in New York City just demonstrates that very fact. So we need to continue to have our voices heard. I've told my constituents who ask me about it that they should not give up and they should not take down those signs that we see across the southern tier and people's front lawns that say repeal the SAFE Act. They should continue the pressure on the governor, and because those are our constitutional rights and they're very sacred, and we should do all that we can to repeal something that really has done nothing to stop gun crimes.
You've also been very outspoken on Common Core.
You know, I have been, because I think that we need higher educational standards, but we also need to make sure that we have a system that works. And obviously the rollout of the Common Core standards was a disaster, and there are going to be several educational reforms, I believe, this year. Even the governor has been saying that he wants to reform our schools. And so, you know, I think we have wonderful schools in the southern tier. We have teachers who work very hard, and they give their hearts and souls to helping children learn. And they should be applauded, and we should do all that we can to give them support. At the same time, if the Common Core standards aren't working and our teachers are being not evaluated in the best way, and we take away local control from parents and school districts, that's wrong. So we need to make sure that we're looking at those Common Core standards and making any changes that make sense.
Senator, we haven't interviewed you since the election, and as we mentioned earlier, you ran the Senate Republican Campaign Committee, which was quite victorious. Any thoughts there as far as future Republican plans or your future role with the Republicans in that role? Because you seem to do a good job there.
Well, thanks, Brian. That's very kind of you. You know, we have made our priorities very clear, and we did it all during the election season, and I believe that's why we won, because the Senate Republicans are very focused on economic growth, more jobs for people across New York State. We want to get people back to work. We want people to have job opportunities, and especially our young people, so that they don't have to leave after they graduate. And our biggest export, unfortunately, out of the state has been our young people, because they leave. They don't believe that they have a future here, and we need to change that. So we're focused on economic growth, on jobs, on new opportunities, on tax relief, which we still desperately need. And I believe that's what the people of this state want. On the other side, they were talking about things that really weren't as meaningful to folks. And I think that, you know, that's why they weren't able to take back the majority. But as we also know, there was a real push out of New York City. Mayor de Blasio, the Radical Working Families Party, and other radical groups were trying to seize control of the Senate so that they could control all of state government.
How'd you block that?
Victory that we were able to stop them.
Yeah, how did you block it? I know you said that you had, you know, an agenda that you get out there, but tell us a little more if you would.
Well, you know, we had several seats in play, and so we had 4 open Republican seats where Republican senators decided for whatever reason not to seek office again. So we had to defend those seats, and we also were able to win back 3 seats that we lost to the Democrats 2 years ago. So it was really that combination that gave us the full majority in the Senate. And, you know, I don't mean to sound partisan, because I'm not, but the reality is, in New York State, there are 2 parties. There's upstate and there's downstate. And in New York State government, downstate actually controls the Democrat side of the aisle. And we all remember what happened in 2009 and 10 when Republicans lost control of the state Senate. It was out of control taxes and spending, $14 billion in new taxes and fees, 124 new taxes. People were suffocating under taxes already, and we were losing jobs right and left. And they did all the wrong things. So we didn't want to go back there, but by having high-quality candidates, by having the right message, by working hard, we were able to be victorious.
Senator, you just signed into law a bill that got a lot of high praise from Alfred Alman School Superintendent Rich Calkins, the legislation about virtual learning. From what I understand, that's a lot of online and video learning. Can you tell us about that?
Well, we need to open up new opportunities for our students so that they can have every single opportunity to learn, and this really helps level the playing field as far as bringing new types of programs to our public schools. And when it actually would not replace anything that's already being taught, but it would enhance and enrich. And there are so many courses online where students can learn things if they wanted to, like another foreign language. Oftentimes I hear from my school districts, well, schools down in Long Island have the opportunity to learn Chinese, for example, and we don't. And, there's no way that we would ever be able to have a Chinese instructor in every school district in the state anyway. But you can learn Chinese online. You can learn other enrichment programs online. And so we want to open that window for people and for especially our students so that they can have the most well-rounded, high-quality education possible. And this new law will enable our students to do just that.
Final question for you, State Senator Cathy Young, the only N Republican not to do a constituent favor on the air, but you helped save a hospital in Chautauqua County, and that's a big topic around here. St. James Hospital in Hornell is in danger of shutting down the inpatient services in March. Now, so far what they've been doing, a campaign locally, a group of doctors that work at the hospital have been doing a campaign to get people to sign signatures both online and on paper, requesting that the governor and the acting state health commissioner, Dr. Mort Zucker, step in and do something to prevent St. James from losing its inpatient services. That includes a maternity ward. And I know you know the Hornell area and around it, but that would mean people would have to drive to other hospitals, Dansville, Wellsville, Bath, and it would be tricky to do that when you're having a baby. Any thoughts, any advice on people trying to save St. James, Senator Young?
Well, I'm very concerned about any loss of rural health care, and I'm chair of the Commission on Rural Resources, and access to rural health care is one of my top priorities. So I've had conversations with Senator Tom O'Mara, who has been helping lead the fight to save St. James. I've had discussions with the Department of Health about it, and, we need to do all we can to preserve our access. I think sometimes when you're from Albany or New York City, you don't realize upstate and how far we have to go just to get basic health care. And so we need to make sure that we are raising our voices. I'm so glad that there's a petition going on. I'm so glad that people are really getting involved because that's really what it takes to make a difference. And obviously I do have people who live in my district. They may not be from Hornell, but they live in Allegheny County who use the services at St. James. So this is something that I'm most concerned about, and I really hope we're able to do something to come up with a good solution.
Senator, what was the key to saving, I think it was called, is it Lakeshore Hospital in Chautauqua County?
We're still working on Lakeshore, and I think that things are really looking up, but we aren't to a final solution yet. It was kind of a different situation. We have an out-of-state entity that's been coming into Chautauqua County and basically getting a foothold and then closing down our hospitals.
Oh, don't tell me you're talking about Hammett Hospital in Erie, PA.
Yeah, the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, UPMC, and they've really come in and from my perspective, they've done a lot of things to mismanage the local hospitals in Chautauqua County, and as a result, they're closing down. Lakeshore was one. Brooks is in serious financial trouble right now in Dunkirk. They also are looking to take over WCA Hospital in Jamestown, and so I'm very upset and concerned about that fact because, again, we need to have access to good health care. Now, how do you know about UPMC?
Well, I can tell you about Hammett Medical because I used to work in Erie, PA, and I wasn't the only one who groaned about the medical care there, Senator.
Oh, okay. Well, it's almost a predatory relationship that they're forming, and I think it's much better if we have relationships with New York hospitals rather than out-of-state entities who may not be aware of state law and regulation or even care about it. So we're working diligently to try to save the hospitals actually across all of my district, because no matter where you look, it seems like rural health care is in trouble right now, and we need to make some very good policy changes to save our rural hospitals. And so I commend everyone who's working to save St. James.
Well, State Senator Cathy Young, we've gone over the time allotted. Your spokesperson said 10 minutes, and I see we've gone a lot longer than that. I wanted to thank you very much, and I'm glad we touched on St. James, because as you know, that's a big topic around here. Senator Young, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, and happy holidays.
And happy holidays to you, Senator Young. Kevin Doran coming up next here on the Newsmaker Show. Back in segment 2 now with Kevin Doran, the regular host of this show. He's been out on, I guess you call it sick leave. I don't know if you take a sick leave when you own the radio station. Anyways, Kevin Doran, thanks for joining us.
Okay, Brian. Yeah, right. Convalescing at home now. Again, that same bad back that laid me up, last month or the month before? Yeah.
In the last few minutes of the first segment that we did here with State Senator Cathy Young, I said to the senator, I said, a local issue that I wanted to ask you about, St. James Hospital. Well, good news for our area. Senator Young is a very influential member of the state Senate. She's been around a while and helped save a hospital, Lakeshore Hospital in Chautauqua County, which was in danger of closing. In somewhat of a similar situation, they were bought out by Hammett Medical Center in Erie, Pennsylvania, and Hammett's been pretty tough on them, from what I understand, at Lakeshore Hospital in Chautauqua County. So I said to the senator, your thoughts on St. James. She says she's involved with this project at St. James. She's worked with Senator Tom O'Mara, the Hornell area state senator. He's from Big Flats, but represents Hornell. And I said to the senator, your thoughts there. She said that she's on Rural Resources and the Senate Health Committee. She's been in contact with the State Health Department. So that struck me as a piece of good news.
Yes, she is influential, and the Republicans now have the majority in the state Senate. However, when it's all said and done, it's going to depend, I think, on two things. What Catholic Health East Trinity, which now owns the hospital, and has done Hornell very, very bad service. They have really raped our hospital, let's put it that way. And Governor Cuomo and his health commission, that's where it's going to come down to. But I have been thinking a lot about this, and I'm very, very concerned that there are forces moving now, both by Catholic Health East, the U of R, and some local people, to shut us down in favor of what would amount to an emergency room in North Hornell. An emergency room, but not a hospital, an ambulatory surgery hospital. They like to say it's going to be, but when you talk to the surgeons, they say, no, it can't be, because you cannot do surgery in what amounts to emergency room. You've got to have a real hospital there. So there's an awful lot of deception going on. And there's something else that bothers me a great deal, and I'm going to say this again in the future. The last executive for Catholic Health East made $6 million, and when she left or was fired or whatever happened to her, she got a $2 million parachute. Now, when the Catholic Church built hospitals all over the country, including here in Hornell, it was Father James Early at St. Anne's Church who put that hospital where it is and got sisters from Ireland to staff it. They weren't doing it for the money. Now, if they're going to continue to call themselves Catholic Health East, I protest as a Catholic. The Catholic Church didn't build those hospitals to make money, and that's exactly what these people are doing.
You talk about Mayor Sean Hogan a moment ago and the lack of surgeries that they'll have at this new proposed facility in North Hornell. Mayor Sean Hogan spoke on that at the last council meeting.
If you have a child who wakes up in the middle of the night, is 9 years old, and has a emergency appendicitis, you take it to the emergency room, then you're not going. That surgery won't be performed here, even though we have 2 surgical suites. There'll be outpatient surgery, and that surgery will be performed here, so we have to go to Dansville or Jones.
That's Hogan there saying that, let's say you have a 6-year-old child whose appendix is bursting, you take him to the facility in North Hornell to the emergency room. Well, that's nice. They can't do the surgery. And I double-checked that with one of the doctors at the hospital, and they said it was absolutely true.
I'll tell you, Brian, there's an awful lot of lying going on, an awful lot of disingenuous moves by the people who run Catholic Health East. Boy, I got to tell you, I really burned to have to say Catholic, because the previous administrator was making $500,000 a year. Absolutely disgusting. And all the time she was making that money, she was working with her bosses to bring the place down.
And that's an awful lot more money, $500,000 a year, than the average person around here makes.
I guess so. It's not even in the ballpark. Here's the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is, I wonder, and I keep asking people, and not getting a really solid answer, if there is the making of a lawsuit here against CHE, or whatever it's supposed to be.
CHE Trinity.
I would think that with the malice they brought here, and with what they've done to this community, there should be a lawsuit. And besides, there's something else I want to say. The U of R is in all this. They're deciding what we're going to have in North Hornell. Well, that's lovely. But where is that guaranteed? And besides, would you, unless you were right in front of the place and you had an accident in North Hornell, would you go there, or would you go to Noyes, where you're going to end up eventually anyway? No. This is a disgusting development, and something should be done. I urge people to listen to the doctors who are making announcements on our station, especially Dr. Byron Collins, who tells it exactly like it is. Brian, I'm just heartsick about this. It has been a terrible thing. And by the way, talking about the future of Hornell, if you were an industry and if you were going to locate in the community, would you locate in the community that had no hospital? I don't think so. So this is going to be a tremendous blow, not only to us today, but to the future, and a slap in the face to those people who made this hospital, kept it going, made it a first-rate facility. You know, we do have some obligation to the people of the past who left us all this, and we're going to destroy it? People should pray, number one, this never happens, and secondly, get in touch with the governor, get in touch with their politicians, get in touch with the state health department and say, look, this is just terrible what you're trying to do to us. We must have some rights, along with the people of Corning and Dansville and Wellsville. I'm sorry, I'm almost speechless. I get so angry about this. Okay, Brian, that's what I've been thinking about.
Well, Kevin Doran, I want to thank you for coming in segment 2 of today's show here on the Newsmaker Show, which is, by the way, your show.
And will be again. I hope this week.
Actually, he emailed me just a few minutes ago and sent his home number. He won't be at the college. They're doing some work at the college, and he's hoping that we can call him and do a Newsmaker this week.
Okay, thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you, Kevin Doran. It's AM 1480 WLEA Hornell. Our two guests today, Kevin Doran in segment 2, State Senator Cathy Young in segment 1. I'm Brian O'Neill. ABC is next here on AM 1480 WLEA Hornell.